Hi.
Hi, everyone. Hi,
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 everybody.
hi, everybody. Welcome to the Blossom and Brew podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Regine L. Sawyer, and I'm here with my illustrious co host, Ilka Pinero.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Ilka Pinero, Regine L. Sawyer. We're here. We're
Yeah,
so happy to be with you. Um, it's so funny. I feel like we have so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start.
I know. I know. I know. We started late today because the memorial for George Floyd was today. And we want to give honor and reverence to that, and love to his family, and love to our fellow protesters, love to our fellow Black people, all brown people, people who are walking forward with us in the movement. Um, like we're kind of somber, but we want to touch on all the things. I think it's just so much, right, Elka?
I mean, I think it's so interesting when you're just like, we want to touch on all the things. I'm like, oh God, we only have like 90 minutes. Like, like, well, how is that gonna happen? And also when you were saying the thing about it's somber, it's so noteworthy to me because it's just like this never ending. It feels to me like a radio dial that just refuses to settle. It's
Yes,
like, are we listening to the station that's like blinding rage? Are we listening to the station that's like absolute despair? Are we listening to the station that's, like really trying to find hope? Sometimes it's really hard to catch that station, especially now. Are we listening to the station that's just like burn it all down? Like what, it just kind of cycles through those stations seemingly from moment to moment, like breath to breath. And it's so funny, just like, and the way that I even track it is because I'm in this space by myself due to this quarantine. Please let's not forget we are dealing with a pandemic.
yes,
It really shows itself like when I come up against like outside or rather like external stimulation, like text messages. Text messages, like a text message from one person, depending on when it catches me, will be my response to it will be like completely different to a very similarly sentimented text message that will happen like maybe like 2 hours later. Um, so it's so fascinating. I joke about this. I've joked about this with you, but I'm just like, wow, yes, like this is like it's the T. It's the T and the PTSD, but it's not post, it's real time.
yeah,
Like this is like
yeah.
real time trauma and like how things are being disordered. Like, girl, my sleep has been fucked up. I
Everybody
don't
I know who's black.
I
That's facts. I'm
somebody
getting
yes.
today. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No.
Today, I spoke to two friends, and they were both like, "Yo, my sleep is done.
Done.
Like,
Done.
my sleep is done. Like, I'm crying every morning.
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
a wrap." And I'm like, "Yo, I'm with you too. Like, my sleep has not been the best for a while.
Yes.
Just particularly
Yes.
during this the pandemic, and then with everything that's happened, over the past 3 months, from Brianna to
I can't even do 3 months,
Tony
girl. I can't
to
even really do 3 months.
George to it's
Here's what hold on.
yeah, you speak.
I'm gonna just swoop in. I'm gonna just swoop in right quick.
Yeah,
Because to
please do.
me, and this is clearly to some degree, obviously a coping mechanism, um, that it's possible, like it could be like my version of like pro-black spiritual bypassing. It's very possible. But I've noticed that I'm just sort of like, I almost can't like when I see a new name, because there are multiple names every day at this point. There's at least one name. There's at least one new name a day. Um, And so when I see things like, oh, the George Floyd protests, rest in peace, I'm just sort of just like, that is so reductionary to me, reductive to me, and so reactionary that I'm just like, no, 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 no. It's not just George Floyd. Like George Floyd is yet another of so many, and like it just so happened like this could have happened it feels like this could have happened. The potential for this to happen has been there for so long, and it does feel like a perfect storm of things, like if it wasn't for mixed Rona, like would this have happened? You know what I mean? If it wasn't, I don't know. But I tend to believe so. I tend to believe that, like, just through my experience of it and the experience of other Black people, when this shit came in and like the first studies came back and it was just like, it's knocking out the Black people, y'all, and these are all the reasons why, right? And then a certain part of the population, it seemed allegedly the optics were that they were like, oh cool, let's go, like, yeah, too bad for them, cool for us, let's go. Like the chips are stacked stacked in our favor. Great. Like we're going to get the best healthcare. Sure. Okay. Totally. We already are generally in better health because of various things. Okay, cool. Haircuts. Like, sorry, niggers, haircuts.
Yeah.
That's what the optics
Yeah.
were. And it was like, oh
Yeah.
no. And it's not like the cops ever took time off, like for the like little piece of time that people were really inside, because like now that shit's out the window. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, okay, so okay, so we're not quarantined no more. Like, we ain't quarantined no more. This quarantine is done, basically. They said no groups no larger than 10. And look what happened. And so to me at this point, there's a way to look at, there's a really easy way, for me at least, and I think for most people who are thoughtful, right, to like just look at the ways all of this is sort of like spread out on kind of like, the like abattoir floor that is like, whiteness, you know what I mean? That is toxic whiteness. And it's just like, bodies piling up in the ways that bodies have always piled up, because of anti-Blackness. And I hope that makes sense. And I say all that to say, because of that, of course our sleep was fucked up. I saw somebody write on the TL last night on Twitter. They were just like, yeah, it was so simple. I wish I could remember it, but it was something like, no single Black person I know was sleeping right. And I was like, yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even prior to this, because it was just like, okay, generalized pandemic fear. And then it was localized pandemic fear, because it was like, oh shit. Like I hit at least one of those demographics, if not more. You know what I mean? And it just sort of felt like the Black people, and the brown people, I would imagine to some degree, as someone who was like kind of like both, right? So like, I feel like that psychic wave ran through all of us, where it was like, oof. And then it was just, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
It's also because when you think of a pandemic or sickness, there's always the possibility of people who are on the margins to get sick first.
Yeah.
Or folks that are attending to people in hospitals, anything where you're constantly having to be around people in this emergency situation. It's mostly us. It's mostly people of color. So we're always on the front lines of things of that nature. And then, so you have that, and then you hear, okay, everybody has to wear a mask. And it's like, okay, everybody wear your mask, wear your gloves, we got this. And then it becomes, wait, I'm Black, I'm brown, I wear a mask, I might get shot. Someone will think I'm stealing something. So okay, so there's another layer to it.
That part of the conversation.
There's that other layer. And then it also becomes, okay, a lot of us are not on the streets like that. Like, so when we do come out, might be no, just a few, and you still see police riding around and riding by. So it's like, okay, I could be pulled over. you know,
Right.
that's that's always in our mind. So I think there were just layers of anxiety
Yeah. Oh yeah.
from the
Absolutely.
beginning. So when last week kicked off, and I hate to say it kicked off because it just felt like the beginning of the week just was like, nope,
Yeah.
like we got something else for you. And then we had Central Park Karen,
Uh-huh.
and then we had George.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
week from there just went not even left. In a sense, I almost think it went right
I mean, it was just I mean,
because
I can't even choose a
because
direction.
of the protests and coming together and so forth. But it's been so much. You still see we getting beat out there in the streets. The folks up in Washington, we try to jump over the fence and that's not working. We getting tear gas. I mean, when I think about it, my whole head just explodes.
Mm-hmm.
Explodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think I think a lot of people feel that way for like very different reasons. I think we people on the margins feel that way because it's just like, yep, that was pretty much a logical conclusion to the way shit had been going for this whole time.
Yes.
Like this was gonna, like this was bound. That's what I'm saying. Like it was bound to pop off, and it was bound to. Like there was no, like people have been saying it. Like that's human nature. You can only kick somebody so many times. This is why you see that meme where it's just like people are lucky that black people just want equality and not revenge. And I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that.
See, that's interesting because I've seen it multiple times. Like I just keep seeing it. Like I'm like, ooh, okay. And every time I see it, my fingers itch, and I'm like, you know what? Let me not do that. Which is still fucking catering to the white gays. You know what I mean? So it's just like I don't want to invite that. Like I don't want to have to be like, in like a 17 hour long text exchange because like somebody who's really doing the work is just like, feeling in their feelings because I posted something that like makes them uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
think that it really speaks to, I almost like get myself caught up in this when I find myself saying things from like that very objective place of like feeling compassion
Mm-hmm.
for people who are really entrenched in whiteness. I'm going to put it that way. Because I'm like, ooh, that's a bummer for you that you're so caught up in that. Like, you know what I mean? That you're ailing in such an extreme way. Um, and this is what I mean about how it's sort of like it almost feels like the part of me that like hates whiteness, and in like less public forums would say that in a different way that I have said to you many times, uh, it battles because it feels like the part of me that really hates whiteness and is really just like, ugh, is like almost a necessary protection at this point because it does go back to that thing of like almost any person who is entrenched in whiteness and not actively like dismantling it can become an agent. And so many people are entrenched in whiteness and not actively dismantling it. And now I feel like what we're seeing in response to all of this, because those same people, like those same of us that are so entrenched in whiteness, like have had to be home, even if they've been like sneaking out or whatever, saying, fuck it, like there's so much collective, like the collective quiet is increased so much that like people have to sort of see it now. Like there are just fewer things open to, distract oneself with from like this happening. So now we're getting things like this, like the black box bonanza.
The Black
Where
Box Bonanza.
yes, the black box bonanza.
What's that?
The black squares, the black box
Oh
bonanza. It
God.
literally happened yesterday. The black box bonanza. That's what
Well,
I'm calling it.
I blacked it out. How about that?
No, I don't think we can black it out because the black box bonanza of 2020 is amazing to me because for a couple reasons. One, we got to see a lot of real time learning. Like that was amazing to me to watch. Like to watch just, you know, again, that sort of like informational brush fire, just like it was like we're trying this thing, and then people being like, wait, no, 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 walk it back, like we're not doing it right, you got to delete it, you got to this, like this is how you do it. Just seeing the mobilization of people who were willing to be like, I have to course correct this like right now, because there is a matter of urgency here. And so that was interesting to watch. It was also interesting to watch how it got weaponized. And what I found so interesting is that when I went to bed 2 nights ago at whatever fucked up ridiculous time, I remember like seeing something, like seeing a box or something like that, because I had been seeing sort of dribs and drabs with like the pastel people being like, I'm gonna mute myself from June whatever date to whatever date, and I was like, okay.
Who are the pastel people?
The pastel people are they are influencers. They're influencers. They tend to be, the way in which I encounter pastel people, tend to be people who are in the same professional community as mine. So like your healers, your like quote unquote witches, your astrologers, your life coaches, things like that. People, generally women, that's where you're gonna find your vast majority of like your cis, able-bodied, like thin white women. It's gonna be there, like women that are just sort of like wrapped in fabrics and talking about sage and absolutely bypassing, and we're all one in 5D, and I mean, I could name people. I won't. You've seen them. You know what it is. It's just like a really specific template. It's a specific template to which they all, adhere, and it's just really. I personally find it damaging. It's this sort. It's it's the positive vibes only people. You know what I mean? It's not like, yeah. So I feel
it's nobody that's like trying to really do real work.
Well, I mean, they're trying to do something, that something could be fortune telling for bozos, but hey. So it's the kind of thing where it's just like, if they're the sort of people that are out here talking about like, let's do all this spiritual work and like, let's be on the great path and all of this and all of that. But it's just like, if you're not able to look at the role like whiteness and oppression is playing from that like energetic / spirit level, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? Because what's happening right now, what's been happening, what we are seeing in the physical realm as these, possessed law enforcement officers, we're just going to call them, I'm going to just leave it right there. And these, viruses, these ailments, these like the unrest, the way, things have come to a head, like in this country, in other countries, the whole place, like the fires, like the ecological events, the things like that, it's all evidence from the shamanic perspective of just like great imbalance, you know what I mean? And mental viruses and spiritual viruses. So stuff is in upheaval in all of the realms right now. And I think that's part of the reason why people are unable to sleep. There's like so much going on. And so like there's so much going on for everybody. And then if you're someone on the margins, you have all the other shit happening. So it's kind of like, yeah.
No, I'm listening. Go ahead. No, you're saying it's kind of like.
So it's just sort of like no one's getting away with anything, like no one's getting away with anything, and everybody is feeling completely. It's like a slow decimation, or like this like slow annihilation of the ways that we have been functioning in multiple realms of like existence, is the shamanic perspective.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of upheaval.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of upheaval. I mean, when you started with the pandemic, it was like, okay, we're all going to be in the house. We have stay-at-home orders. Can't go outside. Make sure, as I said before, make sure you have your mask on, your gloves, what have you. And so we knew definitely after a month, it's like, okay, there's going to be a new normal after this. And then when last week started and ended, it was just like it's another level of upheaval. At the same time, it was something that was brewing, you know, even the
Yeah.
pandemic was brewing. I mean, it's apparently the government has known for a very long time that it has been warned about a possible pandemic
Yeah.
happening, you know, so they were supposed to prepare themselves, but you know, um, and then they were also warned about racial unrest in the country, and that at some point that there would be an upheaval in that way as well. And so here we are with these two upheavals, and either way, it's like, where do we go from here? I mean,
Right.
there's so many levels. There's so many levels to it to change. And when I say to change, for this whole system to change, like everything, policing has to change, legislation has to change. We have to stay in the streets. We have to stay fighting. Like it can't just end with, you know, you and I having this discussion, and next week we talking about, you know, what braids we're putting in our hair. You
I
know,
mean,
even that's
that's
still a discussion. But you know what? But you know what I'm saying? Like the conversation can't end, the protesting can't end, the movement can't end.
right. So I think like, who are you saying that to? You know what I mean? Like, and
I'm
that's
saying
not to
that to
challenge you,
myself,
but
I
it's just
think.
like,
It's
see,
a
are
reminding
you
myself.
though? But I don't know. But are you? Because I feel like, well, hold on, no, because I feel like truly, like I hear what you're saying, but I don't think you're saying it to yourself, because like this is not new. We have been talking about this. You know what I mean? I can reflect back to you personally that like, you know, you have been as far, you've been, there's been a level of fire to like the ways in which you have been experiencing your life, right? And interacting with it in terms of anti-racism, you know what I mean? And in terms of like equity mindedness and energetic responsibility, you know? And I would say what it really feels to me like is a challenge, because I know I'm feeling very challenging toward
Mm.
like non-black people, you know, where I'm just like, all right, again, the black box bonanza, you know, where it's just like, all right, you put up your black boxes and now what? First of all, like, and I'm gonna get a little, stush right now. So here's the thing about the black boxes was I was just like, okay, my thing with the black box was I saw the first boxes happening and I was like, I'm not touching that shit with a 10-foot pole. Cause I was like, who did that? Where is that from? You know, and I feel like what happens is that people are so freaked out because of all the things you talked about, right? And then like, and that's not even counting what like their personal shit is, right? They're so freaked out. Because they're so terrified, because of the administrative fear mongering campaign, and like terror campaign that we have been experiencing, again some of us to differing degrees, are super disempowered. People aren't connected with their critical thinking, right? Which is why we're like meditation. You have to get there, and so they just see. So they just see like one person, two people do a thing, and it's just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this thing that I don't really know what it is, and I'm so disconnected and so disempowered that it's not even gonna occur to me to go and like maybe Google like black box on Instagram, because like had you Googled, like had one Googled, you would have seen what it really was, which is just kind of like, okay, that's a very specific sub, you know what I mean, culture. And I just feel like it's real easy. Again, brush fires, right? It's just like information is moving like brush fires. And all of a sudden here was this black box thing, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, you did that. And it was like this day of great learning and this, and also the people who like somehow missed the memo, like the people who got the memo that they should have done the black square, but then missed the memo that the black square was actually not useful. Like it's just like, did you just do your black square and bounce? Like what happened? So it feels like this like dipping a toe in and out of the conversation. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's on particularly black people, because we're in the conversation because we're in blackness. Right? And so it's
Yeah.
just like, it feels very much like a challenge just rising up in me for non-black people to be like, no, 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 no. Okay, you put up your little square and now what? you know? And the ways in which there are people that I've seen that I personally know who put up those little squares who have history and track records of being harmful to black people, myself included. And I'm just like, you anti-black as fuck. What is your square up there for? Hold
I
on.
agreed.
When you and I were dealing with each other, it was microaggressions, it was wage theft, it was fraud, it was sabotage, it was all kinds of bullshit that I had to sit there and I had to rock and I had to take. Why? Because of the way the shit is folded into the goddamn system. But you out here throwing up a box for what reason? For why? Fuck you.
As
Like it's
a pretense,
yeah, well of course. It's absolutely performative.
performative.
And so my thing is I'm like, don't do that. Just don't put a box up. Just go about your life. Go about your life.
Well, here's
And
the thing.
again, yes.
I'm so sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So polite.
Because you know I'll ride with it.
Like we're so polite. Well, before I was talking about myself because I'm always thinking about how am I culpable and what other responsibilities can I take. I guess that's maybe just my mindset. It's just like what else can be done, and it's like yeah, it really is more for white folks, not me.
Right,
But I'm
right.
always thinking about that. At least when it comes to my people, like I'm not running down the block to educate somebody. I will give you information, but I'm not here to mule. You
Yes.
know. But I'm always thinking about my people. Like, what's my responsibility to my people? How can I help? If I can't help out in the streets, how can I help in my house? So that's
Yeah.
why my mind is always like, my mind is on there. Like, okay, am I doing this? Am I doing that? Sort of like just, I don't necessarily stress about it, but I keep it in the back of my head. And I mean, with the black boxes, all I wanted to say about that was the way it started was just not what it became.
I know.
It's not what it became. This is these two black female executives. They
I
work
know.
in the the music industry, and
Yep.
they just want to black out like the entertainment industry. Like, yo, block your shit out. Like,
Yes.
listen to black
Exactly.
people and the voices and all that. And then it got co-opted because there's another event called, it's going to be hashtag Blackout Tuesday on July 7th. And that's a totally different thing where
Yes.
it's just about, go support black folks. Well, no, not some, yeah, go support black folks, but it was more so as black folks, let's take our dollars away. Don't
Well,
buy nothing.
well, my understanding was that it was supposed to be every weekend starting this weekend.
Really? I didn't know. I
Yes.
didn't hear that.
See, and this is right, and this is what I'm saying about the brush fires, and this is what this is what I'm saying about the brush fires, and like people, even though we've had all this space and all of this time and this invitation to be inside and slow down and find your interiority and blah, 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 right? People are still so unpracticed in like vetting for themselves. You know what I mean? That happened so quickly. That's what I'm saying. Like that's what that's what I mean when I say like I saw it. I saw sort of like the rumblings of it, like in the days leading up to the Black Box Bonanza. And then I went to bed and saw like one or two black boxes on the timeline. And like my spidey sense was like, that's going to be weird. And I was like, okay. And then I went to bed. And then when I woke up, by the time I woke up the next day, the timeline was covered in that shit. Like by the time I got back to the thing, like back to the socials, as it were, the 16-hour gap, it had completely changed. And I was like, oh, the humans fucked it up again. Like we fucked it up again,
They
like,
were also adding the hashtag Black Lives Matter.
yes,
and it was messing up
of course
all the communication, and that's what the alt-right wanted.
Right. So that's what it goes back to, because it's almost to the point now where it's just like it's so imperative that we align with our intuition, because it's almost like you don't know who to trust. Not almost, you don't know who to trust.
But I want to thank you so much, because you put up you posted on Instagram basically saying, y'all, you can take it down. There's no harm, no foul.
Right.
You can remove it. It's okay. And I was just like, oh God, because I had put it up not listening to my intuition, because some said, I don't think this is a good idea. I said, but I see a couple of my other friends doing it. Let me, like, all right, I'll put up a couple of boxes. And that's when I saw, only on Instagram. And that's what, but I'm like, honestly, I knew don't put hashtag Black Lives Matter, because I knew that would mess up the stuff. And so, but then as I'm scrolling, I'm like, oh no, Oh
Yes.
no. So when I reposted your Instagram post, and I reposted on several of my other accounts, all these people went and took it down. They were clicking like, they were looking at the stories because I put it on both. They're like, oh God, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really telling too. That was so telling because I got that. Like even on mine, I got, and thank you so much for sharing that. Cause like I don't really check traction of my things because I'm just like, normally I'm just like, huh, here's the note. Like, here's the note that people want you to know about. I can't be here. It makes me sad and I'm just going to cry. So I have to be very mindful about like going into the social holes. Um, so I say all that to say that really echoes like the little sort of droplets of response I got. Cause like one was a very good friend of mine that was like, I love you. And I was like, huh. And then another friend of mine was like, thank you. And I was like, oh, people don't know what the fuck to do. Don't nobody know what to do right now because everybody is tripped out, you know? So of course you saw like a black box and you were like, yes, oh my God, yes. Like I just need to somehow like be in community with people who are also fucking horrified. Ah, you know? And then for the experience for like far fewer of us, you know, feels like was just like something about that, you know, and something about that doesn't seem right. And like it's such a great example because you were someone who is like generally very in tune with your intuition, you know, and I am too. And because I was thinking about it this morning, I was like, like I there could be any other time when I would have gotten got as well by the black box bonanza, you know,
Yeah.
like I'd have been like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's like it just to me it just is a case for meditation. It just is a case for like really exercising those flexible thought forms and that critical thinking because I do not think we as lay people are prepared for the time we are entering. And I'm just like, we, whoops, like we might need to get it together. We got to get it together with the quickness because we're not ready. We don't have the mental fortitude. I'm just going to come out and say it. We don't have the mental fortitude right now for the unrelenting psychic attacks that we are undergoing and that we are, and in which we are participating knowingly and unknowingly. We're not ready for it. And I think, you know, when I think about those of us who are a little more sensitive, who back in 2016 were like, yo, this is a corner. We are ringing a bell that we cannot unring. And there were all of those people who, for whatever reason, were like, let's just wait and see. It's going to be fine. It's becoming more and more clear to me that like those people are just that much more disconnected from or that much more successful at dampening their intuition. Because it's just like, okay, well, we waited and now we're seeing, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not to say that we hadn't been approaching the corner from well before 2016 because we absolutely were, but that's when we turned that fucking corner. And now and it's just like you turn the corner from like a part of the street where, you know, some people were able to see all the garbage in the street and like the dead, you know, like carcasses and stuff like that. But other people were like, you know, that Leonardo DiCaprio meme just sort of traipsing through like, yeah, it's nice. And then we turn this corner and now everybody's like, wait. When did we enter war torn like territory? And it's just like, well, we were always there, but now
It was an illusion.
right. So I feel like people don't know what to do. I feel like people don't really know how to act. I certainly don't know how to act, and I have access to like inside information in a lot of ways. And I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna stay in the house then because because like nobody else knows how to act, and people don't know how to act less than I don't know how to act. So that can't be safe. So I say all that to say it's so important for us to like, and for all the conversation that goes on around algorithms, the fact that no one did like it took people the fact that no one was like, maybe I shouldn't hashtag Black Lives Matter. Maybe I should be thoughtful about these hashtags. Who am I actually trying to talk to? You know, who am I signaling to? You know what I mean? Like if you're somebody who is, you know, if you're wealthy, if you're this, if you're that, if you're one of those people who you go back home for Thanksgiving or you have your parties and you don't have any Black people at those parties, and the way that you're talking about people on the margins, I said to a friend of mine years ago, I said, we know how you talk about us when we're not there. And he said, oh, and just made a little noise. And I was like, mm-hmm. So if you're someone who's doing that and you're doing that black box, who are you telling? Are you telling me? Because I don't care because I need you to prove it. Or are you telling your, Uncle Jethro? Who are you telling?
They don't know who they're telling.
Right. Because don't nobody know how to act. Because people are so disconnected from their critical thinking. You see? Boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I think, and I do hold us to different, not standards, but like for me, when I see a black person or a marginalized person who is put in the black box, when I see you do it, for example, I'm just like, I totally see why Regine did that. Absolutely. You know, and I relate, and I'm like, compassion. And this is where my shadow comes up. But when I see a white person do that, especially someone who ain't never had none to say
Yeah.
until the black box, I'm like, okay, you just got to the party. You just got here. Some of us have blisters. Some of us been digging these holes and in these trenches for the whole time. So it's almost like you're there and you're like a veteran soldier or whatever, some shit, and then these new kids pop in and they're like, we're ready to go, but they ain't got no basic training. They ain't got no basic training. So then they're gonna run full tilt boogie into this battle, get the shit shot off, slowing you down because then you gotta stop to fucking tend to them. That's what it feels like to be black right now.
I'm not tending to nobody.
Right.
To be perfectly honest.
But you see, but the ones that reach out to you, the one that reached out to me, literally, when I posted earlier last week or whatever it was, your black friends are exhausted. I had somebody reach out to me later that same day, and it was a whole thing where it's like, my kids and this thing, and can you eat? And what do we do? And I just was like, book a session. Like, why are you texting me? Like, I basically went out and publicly announced, yo, a nigga is tired. Leave me alone. And your response to that is to just ask me to do more labor? What in the world and where in the fuck? Because I don't know. Okay, I do not know. I do not know because
That was to me the other day when someone asked me to be a sensitivity reader, and I'm like, "Where's your budget? There's nothing mentioning a budget here."
Right.
But you want me to be a sensitivity reader?
And truly, at this point, yeah, go ahead. No,
because this person is working on, a project with people of color in it.
Right, of course.
And it's like, oh, and then when the person finally got back to me after I said, like, okay, where's your budget? The response was, oh, well, I'm a really small company. I never looked into sensitivity reader page rates and so forth. And I just looked at this and I'm like, God save me.
Did you quote? Wait, did you quote her? Why didn't you quote her about it?
I did. I gave her a quote. She has not responded.
Girl, she ain't paying you for that.
But it's just like the audacity, the caucasity.
Yeah. She ain't paying you for that. She
truly, it's like in the midst of all of this upheaval, all of this grief,
yeah,
all of this anger and fear, and yet strength and all this stuff. That's the first thing you want to send out to somebody.
Of course.
No.
I mean,
anybody who's listening to this, do not do that. Do not do that. Make sure you have a price. Black folks, brown folks, Asian folks, we are not here to mule for anyone. We're not here to work for free or to work, less than what we're worth. Pay us, especially during this situation. Also open your wallets and donate to all of these different bail funds and also these other funds that are feeding folks in pantries and all that shit.
Yeah, you better than me, boo boo, because you included all kinds of. For me, at this point, I'm just like, black people to the front, black people to the front. African identifying brown people, you can come too. Everybody else, rocket in the back. We don't have time for you right now. Like I've been joking. I'm just like, the case for segregation is loud. Is loud in your girl. And I'm like, we need spaces. We need spaces that are just us, because the simple fact of the matter is that it's proven time and again the high risk that that is inherent in these integrated spaces. Like, I just, from personal experience, like, I'm just like, okay.
Well, that's because but that's because you have faced an onslaught.
True.
You know what I mean? I think that's the perspective that you come from, I believe, because of, you've been to Ivy League schools, you're very educated, which is fabulous, but you've been inundated in these white spaces, and I think it's become too much.
Mm-hmm.
I said what I said.
I heard what
I think
you
I
said.
think it's been a lot. I mean, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's been a lot, and now you're seeing, a lot of individuals that you have known throughout the years show themselves,
Right.
and you're tired.
Right.
You're tired, and that's why I always suggest to my Black people, to my brown people, that we come together and heal and have a space for ourselves so that we can go out into the world and do whatever we need to do, because we need that time together.
Mm-hmm.
We need our Juneteenth.
Yeah.
We need that. We need that. Those things are very important. It's healing time, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. And I think you need you need to be in an echo chamber or something. Like, you need to be in a hyperbolic chamber, like just fed Black deliciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
really
true.
like, you need an IV. You need an IV of Black folks.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much where it's been. I have, like, I would say that there are three white people that I will communicate regularly, with whom I will communicate regularly. But pretty much it's just yeah, the Negrums in the house, because I'm like, I can't. This is this is too much. It's too much. It's too much to. It's just like again, like watching them have the experience, like their experience strikes me as so messy and so much carnage, that it's just like shrapnel. You know what I mean? Just shit flying everywhere. Like that's like just like the process of it, and by that I mean even the people who are like dismantling whiteness. Like there are very few that I feel like have gotten through the dismantlement process or the dismantling process like far enough that being near them while they're doing it doesn't also create damaging conditions for us. You know what I mean? Because it's just like watching, like, being in the same room as all of that coming apart. Like, it's just like, oh, and now I'm stabbed with like a jagged piece of metal. Excuse me, I have to go to triage now. It feels like it. That's how kind of my experience is sort of unfolding with it. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna leave you to it. I'm just gonna close the door, and like, I care about you. I love you. I really hope that like you come out of this room and we can like be together. And if you don't, that's okay too. Like that's kind of where I am with it at this point, And it doesn't even feel like petty or like, fuck you, I'll never talk to you again, or like, you don't deserve to have an Ilka. It's just sort of like, all right, you know what? Like, the places that each of us are going are not places that the other one can join. And that's what's up with that. You know what I mean? And it's just sort of like, you're not dead to me. I still wish you the best. I'll come to your functions. Like if I, assess the risk to be something that I can handle, and we gonna rock from there, because it's just sort of like, it's too messy. It's too messy. And again, these folks that are so entrenched in whiteness, not only are they embarking on like a deep, deep, deep level of mess, they are also like conditioned and trained to want us to clean up their mess, or to expect us to clean up their mess. And it's just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be here cleaning up a thing that is hurting me while you're making it like all at once. Like that seems like a fool's goddamn errand, and I'm not interested in it. And I'm really looking at my own shadow in the places in which that perhaps I have been like, like in the room, and it feels like in the last, decade or so, just sort of like sideswiping the mess, like, ooh, like I've managed to get like kind of really gifted at like, oh, there's a dagger coming, let me whoop, you know what I mean? Like it's constant dodging. So like I can be in the room with these people dismantling this thing and still like be in the room with them and like love them and have these experiences with them. And also there's that extra level of constantly having to like be on guard, like, oh shit, there's a shard of glass. Oh no, there's a bullet. Oh whoop, ninja star. Like I gotta dip, like
Yeah.
you constantly have
Yeah.
to dip, And now I'm just like, you know what? I love you. I'm gonna leave the room now, though. I need to leave the room.
But I think that just for us in general as a people, that's what we've had to deal with. I mean, just in the workplace
Right. And those are
alone.
from the people that aren't dismantling it. Because when they're not even dismantling it, then you never fucking see when it's coming.
Yes, it's even more dangerous.
Right. Or there's like the gleeful aspect of it.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
With the joy of inflicting the pain.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, it's obviously not a true joy, you know what I mean? It's like whatever validation or vindication that's like so caked in, dis-ease, you know what I mean, that they get kicks out of that shit.
So, so, hmm.
So I think
I was going to ask, well, what do you think? But I have a question
well, I was just
for
going to
you.
say, those of us who are on the margins and who excuse me, who do see and who are looking for coping mechanisms, ways to like maneuver, ways to ascend regardless, like how do we switch our focus, how do we switch our collective focus to that, and I guess part of my like intention for myself and like to share with folks who find themselves in situations similar to this is like, okay, how do we leave the room, with like quickness and compassion, like how do we just get out the room as safely as possible, how do we manage to keep ourselves out of the room as often as we can, and how do we then like create and imagine and build structures for ourselves, like actual supportive, not oppressive, you know what I mean, structures for ourselves outside of the room, so that you know what I mean, so that then it becomes just a choice to enter the room or even to crack the door and see, and not a necessity to have to fucking go in the room because so much of the stuff that we require is caught up with their bullshit in that room. So like after the black box bonanza, where do people go? What do we do now?
When you say we, are you talking about us as a
Both. I
community,
mean, I'm
or
talking about all the people, but like as I said, it's black people to the front. So what do we do?
there's so much.
I know.
There's so much to do, but we can do it. But it's a lot. I don't even like to say the but. It's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot of things that we have to unclutter, in terms of colonization. You know, because our minds are still colonized. There's so much intergenerational trauma there that has to be unraveled in order for us to move forward with each other as a collective, to trust each other, to work together. We already have organizations, we already have all these different outlets, but there has to be a way to sync, has to be a way to link. I constantly think of this analogy of like Voltron.
Yes, I was
How
gonna
you
say. I mean,
right? How do you link up like Voltron? Like how do we get like that? And again, we can do it. It's gonna take work, so we can take care of ourselves and push forward out of all of this toxicity. Because I mean, there's a lot of conversation, especially when you go on social media, you go on Twitter, people talking about allyship, and I'm like, I need an accomplice.
yes,
I don't need an ally, because I see a lot of folks. I mean, a lot of businesses are up there saying, "Hey, send us your work, blah blah blah," and I'm like, "That's great. You told me to send my work in February. It's Black History Month. I still haven't heard from you. I posted my stuff. I posted my work. Because I'm proud of my work. I'm proud of the things that I do. I'm proud of it. I always will be, whether someone hires me today or tomorrow or doesn't at all. I will always do what I do, regardless of anything. But you want to see folks who are going to put their money where their mouth is. They're going to put their neck on the line and possibly their life on the line in order to get things moving. Because I think we've spilt way too much blood.
Mm.
And it's still being spilled. We're doing these protests. We're fighting a good fight. We out here in these streets. We getting shot. Rubber bullets. My God, we're getting tear gas, and the hate is so real that like white reporters are getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that's how deep it is. Like that's how deep it is. You know.
Well, I've been seeing, as you know, I'm mindful about like the images I share and things, but what I have been seeing a lot, like my algorithms have been like, it's important. We want to show you this. And this has been, these law enforcement people roughing up the white folks, roughing up the Kims,
Yes.
roughing up the like Charlies, like roughing them up, like really roughing them up. And I have footage on my phone. Like there was a woman, I want to say, yeah, Asheville, North Carolina. This again, like, sweet little looking, little small, little cut, I mean, a little white lady. And she just was very calm. She had her mask on and she was just like, yeah, we were a medic tent. We weren't even protesting. We were just here with like eye wash and all of this stuff. And it was completely calm. And then, and she was like, and then they just came in and they just like wrecked our tent.
Yes.
And so I've been seeing things like that. I've been seeing things, well, like, of course, with the bricks and all of the stuff. And it's just like, to me,
magical pallets. I've
magical
never seen
pallets,
magical
girl.
pallets of bricks.
Just show, right. There's
Just
one I saw where it was like, it was in the municipal boxes. And it goes,
yeah.
again, it goes back to the critical thinking, because it's just, because I believe, and I also, hold on, there's a lot coming up for me right now. First thing, critical thinking. Second thing, like I feel like these protests, I actually saw this really great video that you just reminded me I want to share later about like how the protesters in Hong Kong organized. And I was just like, okay, like, let me go out here. Let me go ahead and put this somewhere with like the intention that it gets to like people that it needs to get to, because a lot of these protesters have been out here getting got. Like I said, I can hear it. I can see it, like I can see it from my house. I can see the protest from my house. And I've seen how like the energy shifts and how it goes. And I've also just been like,
You
cross-referencing
in the
things
heart.
on the socials. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here so much so that at night I'm just like, ooh, like, curfew, whatever. I hear the people past the curfew. I hear the helicopters flying low all night, every 5 minutes, steady patrols. I hear the roving bands. You know what I mean? They're not on my street, but they're close. The bands of people in the middle of the night just hooting and hollering. And I'm just like, ooh, right here in snooty white Brooklyn. Okay, here we go. Cool. And so it's if this to be sustained, which I think it is going to have to be, because what I think, again, these white folks, these good quote unquote white folks are seeing is these cops don't give a shit about them either. And as I have said in the past, sometimes whether we like it or not, Black people are the arbiters. And I've been saying for at least 8 years now to people, hey, what you're starting to see is white folks gonna start treating white folks the way white folks been treating everybody else. And so here we have these law enforcement officials who we know the FBI told us, 12 years ago? They were like, yo, peeps out for that one, yo, it's the KKK up in there now.
Yeah, they found an application in somebody's house.
Girl, the FBI dropped the thing in 2008.
I know it. I feel it. I believe it.
That's what they were just like, they've been doing this thing. And nobody really talked about it. And boom, here we go. So I'm seeing things, I saw footage of little white boy sitting there, sitting just like he had been apprehended. You know what I mean? Had his like cuffs behind his back, just sitting there in front of this whole long ass line of cops. This one dude standing behind him just spits on this little boy several times. And the people who took the video were obviously white women. And I was just like, you know what? Here's the thing. This is when it's like, it's at your doorstep now. People were trying to tell you it's going to come for you. They're not going to limit it to us, because quite frankly, our numbers are going to dwindle, right? Look at what's happening.
You have to find someone new to abuse.
So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot. And the thing that's amazing is that like, it's not just white cops either.
No.
So like, and it's just like, okay, so hey.
Well, they just arrested those officers in Atlanta that beat up those students. Right. And 4 of them, I think, were black.
Yeah, I believe it.
For the officers.
Right. So like at this point, it's just like, okay, if you were like what would happen if there were just like mass arrests of all the officers that had like the case, like that's the thing. That's something that I allow myself to imagine. Like what would happen? Like what would happen if it was just like everybody who has a pending thing or something, like anybody that we just like shoved it under the rug and we're just gonna arrest you. What would we have left? And that's how deeply that shit is entrenched. And the fact that there are still people, big age people who should know better, who don't know that police patrols are like were the natural successor to the slave patrols. People still don't know that. And I'm just
No,
like,
a lot of people
2020,
don't know that.
2020 in your big age, you don't know that?
But remember the last week's podcast where we were talking about Central Park Karen and the fact that there are a lot of history books. There's a lot of reference books. There's references online. There are documentaries. If people want to educate themselves, they can.
Right.
If they so choose. You don't have to take our word for it, even though, there's plenty of video, so I don't know where your head is. But there are so many books about racism and, and toxic whiteness and just the overall history of colonialism. We as Black people and other folks of color have been dealing with racism and colonization for almost a millennium. That's deep. People don't realize that. So you have a whole wealth of knowledge that's sitting in your libraries. We can't go to libraries right now, but sitting, on your computer, you can look shit up if you so choose and read it. The information is there. So of course you have big old adults that don't know a bunch of stuff,
Right.
because they have chosen to live in their bliss of ignorance. Because otherwise you know a lot of these things.
Well, I mean, I guess it's a different conversation about the people who do know and still act like fools.
There's that too.
Because in terms of these protests, though, again, historical precedent, COINTELPRO, or however you say it. I actually, surprisingly, as much as I know, I still don't quite know how you pronounce that thing. When, like, back in the day with the Black Panthers and the whole thing, you had the agitators, and the way Fred Hampton died was because his security detail was a plan. So like it shouldn't. So like so the magical brick piles and the trucks of people who are just all of a sudden showing up to just all of a sudden escalate stuff. You know what I mean? Shouldn't really surprise anyone. What would surprise me though, and a young brown woman about whom I care deeply, posted a thing, and she was just like, you know what would be cool? She's like, what if we just invited the Black people to not come to the protests, and we just did it, and we just let them rest? And I was like, you know what? That'd be great. And I'm just like, what if it was only white people? Like it was just like, yeah, actually, yes, go ahead and put your bodies on the line. And like, I don't know, like maybe you get like a little secret kind of like crowded channel thing you have in your ear, and you have Black people telling you what to do. And then
that is a thought.
And it would be that much easier. And it would be that much easier to weed out, these black bloc, whatever people, you know what I mean? These plants, these infiltrators who have been there to go and rile up shenanigans, from the people that are really just there being peaceful. Because again, again, the algorithms are like, you need to see this. When I'm seeing people mow down folks like from around my neighborhood, I'm seeing a lot of white people. Just now I went out to drop off laundry, came back, and there was a young white man with his little sign and his thing and his, nondescript clothing. And it's just like, maybe one of the ways that we can approach this is like those of us who are, like that much more exhausted, that much more stressed, have that many more comorbidities or whatever the fuck from being on the margins. Maybe we just need to like lay up in the house, and do protection spells and all that stuff. And like, maybe we need to be the generals, like who just like, set forth the plans. And all that is so much work too, because going back to what you said about how we have to organize within, and we have to get our stuff within, because there absolutely should, like this whole thing with the, like, the fact that the trans, like, that the trans people, that's still a conversation just really bakes my Aquarius biscuits, because I'm just like, why are we still doing this? This is dumb. Let people do what they want to do. Is it hurting you? No, let them, fine. Stop it. Like every time you see some, a conversation about I can't remember the little girl's name, Zeta,
Zaya,
Dwayne Wade's, and yes, Zaya,
Zaya.
whatever, yeah, Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade's daughter, right? If something will happen, like just there was this other thing the other day where Hill Harper came in and misgendered that little girl, and I was like, really? That's what you're doing? Did you see that? It was
No,
a,
I
it was
didn't.
her birthday. Yeah, it was her birthday. Very short story. It was her birthday. Gabrielle posted something about her, and then Hill Harper, the actor, came in and said something where it was just like, you're growing, you're like, stay a fine young man or some shit like that. Like it was just really, it was clunky
What?
and it was weird. Yes, it was clunky
That's
and strange.
purposeful. What?
It was clunky and weird, and like you couldn't quite tell. Like it was just like it was too dumb to have been anything other than purposeful. And then if it was purposeful, it was just vicious,
That was.
and
That
I
was.
was like, what are we doing? I was like, really? Hill Harper? Like you're doing like, like B-list TV. You have to have something else to think about. Like, what are we doing here? Let that baby be. Let that baby be. That child is not hurting you.
Just letting his transphobic flag fly.
So that's the kind of shit that
That's
I'm
what
like,
he
we
was
need
doing.
to. And again, it goes back to like maybe there's a case, maybe again that case for segregation is getting louder because we got some shit we got to, And I don't mean we don't. There's like no, like we can throw like paper airplanes across the line or something like, hey bitch, like how you doing? I miss you, because there are
Yeah.
some people that would not be allowed on the island that I really love. And I was like, but I'll take a dinghy out into the space between, and we can eat fish tacos, paint each other's nails, be friends. But I just feel like where we are right now, we need some, we need a conscious uncoupling.
I don't know. My mind, conscious uncoupling. That. No, I hear you on that. I hear you on that. I feel you on that. It's like there's a lot of work to be done, and in general, I just want people to do the work. Like I just want
Same,
people to do the work. I don't want.
same,
I'm tired of of repeat myself, but I think that's a part of the movement. So you got to constantly repeat yourself because people they don't listen, they don't grasp the concepts, and that's why I push forward. Go get yourself a book.
right,
That's hey, look, you don't believe me, you don't want to hear the words coming out of my mouth. You want a professor to tell you, you want someone with a PhD to tell you. Please pick up a book. There are plenty. Do some research. Like that's I'm very very passionate about that. It's
boo,
even and also before I was mentioning about like all the different folks that I'm seeing like oh we want more black creators blah blah. I'm like you should always want a diverse set of creators.
right,
Period. Not just right now because you see the country burning down.
right.
Like oh quick let's get them some jobs before there's nothing left. Like you know what I mean? Like calm down the black folks. They're so angry. It's like no. It's like no. We were important yesterday. We're important today. We're going to be important tomorrow. We're important. Period. Black lives matter. We matter. Period. You know. So I mean, I just feel like people need to be mindful as they now are looking for quote unquote more black talent. They're now on a quest. You can actually start googling some people. You
Hmm.
don't have to just put a shout out on Twitter like, "Hey, put me in contact with," or "I didn't know if there were black comic book writers. Send me a list." Like you can actually go to Google and put something in and you'll see a whole like list. Like I'm trying to just to grasp people's thought process. Again, I will go up on Twitter and respond to stuff. I will say, hey, check out this person, that person, that person, that person. But that's also something that I do on a regular basis because of women in comics. We're always telling others about each other. That's
Yeah,
what all the events are for. It's like if you didn't know, now you know because someone is sitting up in your face
right,
with their work.
right.
So it's like it's time for white folks to do some work. You're
Well,
interested in certain folks. You're interested in broadening your horizons. Google is your friend.
yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I just want to make sure I situate myself so that I can see from a safe space.
Agreed.
Like that's where I am with it because I'm just like, they will or they won't. They will or they won't. And it's so, and like when I was just now
Because
listening
we
to you
have to
talk
make a
about,
way either way. I have to make a way whether you
exactly,
green light me or not. So it's like I
exactly.
always, there always has to be another path that's carved. I can't sit here, and we can't sit here as a community waiting for that. I'm not going to. I never have. I never will.
Well, this is, when you were
But
just
I'm
saying,
open to the prospect
mhm,
of expanding my portfolio. But I'm just saying, I'm like, for us as a community, there always needs to be another pathway
yeah.
that we make. We have to make that for
Well,
ourselves.
I really appreciate, and what I definitely want to like, yes, thank you, more please, is this John Boyega thing that is happening. He came out and he
Yes.
said, "Wait, hold on," and he said, for the people who don't know, because there might be people who don't, when he went out and he did he spoke at his rally in the UK, and he said, "You know what? I don't know." He said, "I don't know about my career after this. Fuck it." And Jordan Peele came in and said, "We got you," and I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
I was like, "Yes, thank you." More of that, please. More of that, because there are enough of us in these places, and I have mad love for both of those black men
Yes.
for various reasons. And I was like, you know what? We could, and we can. And I am interested in downloading the codes that will make it so that the things that we build can't be firebombed. You know what I mean? That the things that we build can't be just like destroyed because of, the fear and scarcity consciousness that is like the nexus of like white toxicity. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And it's so interesting too, because the thing that I wanted to say before was when you were talking about like how the repetition is part of it. I'm in a place now where I'm tired of repeating myself, and
Yeah.
like
I
that has
feel you.
showed up. That has showed up even in this podcast where I'm just like sort of talking about things, and you're like, but you have to explain what the pastel people are, and I'm like, oh, but I don't want to, because
I
I'm
know you don't.
because I'm like at this point it's like you should be here, like this is not, and this folds in the thing what we were talking about when we were saying like some of us have been talking about this, some of us have been having these conversations for decades and years, and like how old were you, when you realized like, oh, there's a difference here, you know what I mean? And then how old were you when you started talking about it? I'm talking about this shit since I'm in the 6th grade. I say that all the time. So like I've been here for a while, I've been talking about it for a while, and you know what, I'm tired. Like I'm tired. I'm not saying the same thing to you. You know what I mean? So I don't want you. So it feels a little bit like what I had to do when I was first introduced to those predominantly white institutions where, because I am who I am and I'm constructed the way I'm constructed, if people said a word that I didn't know, I would mental note that shit and I would look it up later. And I would just sort of like in the moment, like I would just sort of go quiet and hear it and figure it out with context clues and blah, blah, blah. And like by the time the conversation was done, I pretty much knew what the fuck they were talking about. And then I'd go home and I'd look that word up, and I think for people who were new to these conversations, like that's another way to like approach or explain the work that I think that they're being challenged to do, where it's just like, you know what, the Google is your dictionary, the dictionary is your dictionary, that black person in front of you is not your teacher, it's not your dictionary. And if if you want them for that, you lead with the fucking money. And that goes back to what you said at the beginning, where the person who was like, will you be a sensitivity reader? At this point, we know, what do they speak in? What do they care about? Money, right? Okay, what are we to them? What have they been conditioned to see us as? Property. What are these cops here to do? Protect their what? Property. What were like enslaved people considered property, right? So it's all the same thing. So it's just like, okay, so we have to, I feel like a way to sort of marry it all, right? The way that we sort of like do for us and keep to ourselves and maintain our own thing and manage our safety, and undo some of this fucking epigenetic trauma that's cutting us down like way too goddamn early. You know what I mean? Is to just like celebrate and ascend and tend to the humanity we don't have to fucking fight to see in each other, and let them duke it out on their own. Let them duke it out on their own, because it's just like too much extra. Like it's too much mustard. It's too much mustard on this hot dog. And that's why I am, because I'm just like, I don't want to have to explain it to you, like come at me. And I've been saying this for a while. It's just like at this point, like in terms of the energetic work and in terms of like the historical context and just the observations and just lived experience, it's like I feel like I'm operating at like a 500, 600 level. Don't come at me with no 101 bullshit. because there's so much basics. There's so many places that you could find the basics, and I think that the the reward for the rewarded mediocrity, you know what I mean, and the learned helplessness really puts them in a position where they feel like they can step to somebody who is working at a 500-600 level with 101 level shit. And again, I admit that this is my shadow. Being like, I know this motherfucker is not coming to me with all lives matter right now. Like
Lord,
a
no, better
couple
not, don't.
a couple years ago, a couple years ago, this white lady, um, she not all white women to me, and my first thought was, oh, she's kidding. Like I was like, she's got to be joking. Like I said, and she did it on Facebook, and it was the thing, it's not all white women, and I was like, ha 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 ha, and then I like kept reading the comment, and I was like, oh no, this bitch is serious, and that was one of those things where I just responded, okay, and then never spoke to her again.
Yeah.
And at least one of her sons was my like fairy godchild, and I was like, good luck to your kid because we're done here. Like, and it's just and yeah, like I was just because and her transgression, if we're gonna call it that, was that she came at me with some basic shit that didn't have nuance. Like, really, you're gonna come at me with like the pumpkin spice latte of like knee-jerk white people frailty reactions? Go fuck yourself. Like I just like stop it. Like at the very least, I need you to come at me with off-menu white fragility. Make it interesting for me. Give me, what I mean?
Yeah,
And
that's
that,
totally
and,
what
and
you
that's
mean.
and that might be my Aquarius moon talking, but also I'm just like, I mean, come on. This shit is old at this point. Like, you're not doing anything new. You're not interesting. You're not innovating. You're not innovating with your racism. It's boring.
Racism innovations. Hashtag racism innovations. Be more creative.
No, don't be just. I mean, no, don't give them no ideas. Cancel. Yeah. Because the motherfuckers who are in connection with their with their critical thinking and are really in alignment with like their agenda, they creative enough. They coming up with some hot shit, boy. I'm like, oh, word, just gonna give motherfucker syphilis and see what it do.
Yeah.
Cute,
True.
cute.
True.
That's cute. Oh, they don't feel pain. You can jab them 17 times. So cute. That's great. Yeah. All I can tell people is please meditate. Please meditate. There are codes waiting for you. There are power-ups in that realm of meditation. There are just ways for you to process your life.
Are you offering meditations on your website?
I mean, any of my sessions can be a meditation. All of the work I do is a meditation. I am offering a couple of things. I did have a whole schedule for Instagram live meditations, and we did that for maybe a month, 6 weeks, and they were lovely. And we have like
They were great. They were really great.
So those are back tomorrow. I honestly took like a week and a half off with all of the stuff that's happening. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna rest, and we're gonna figure it out. So we're back.
I took a crochet break. I
mean, I think we had to.
Demos, yeah.
Yeah, because I just had to really be out of the room. I couldn't be like facing it, and I really just had to be in my house doing like, lots of like protection work for the people who were literally down the block from me getting their asses beat. So, so we'll be back in the meditation tomorrow. I would like to say that the meditations, they are pretty radically original content. They are meditative journeys. They're pretty different every time. There may be some similar like components that we touch on because it really is, I always say like it is like energetic exercise. So you have spirit muscles. And so one of the gifts I've been given is the ability to really help people exercise those spirit muscles. And so one of the ways we do that is these journeys. And so, I channel them in real time every time, and it's just the collective energetic messages that are coming through from all the people who are on the call or who are on the live or who are meant to listen to it or hear it, or experience it at a later date. Like that's kind of the information that I receive. So if you're hearing this and you're interested, you can check it out. Um, there will be more to come. I also do another one that's affiliated with S Factor New York. I do that on Wednesdays. No, that's a lie. Yes, on Tuesdays at 5, sometimes Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Other than that, I'm thinking, other than the S Factor one, I'm thinking it's not really going to be a scheduled thing. And it's just going to be when I am inclined and when I'm told to like do a meditation this time, I'll send out a clarion call. I've asked my guides to just give me like at least 12 hours notice for when I'm supposed to show up. And whoever shows up. And then there's going to be one that will be only for Black and brown people. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because that's not going to happen on a live forum. And so just consider this me lighting the fire to the brush fire of that information, so that may it reach the ears of the Black and brown people who will really hear and benefit from it. May they have easy avenues to get in touch with me, so that we can really create something that is for us, that is by us, that is intended to heal us and to strengthen our collective connective tissues, so that it is that much easier for us to communicate in channels that are exclusive to us. I want Black people to be able to telepathically communicate.
I hear that. I hear that.
Yeah.
And I am one to say that, Ilka's meditations are really awesome. Your meditations set me right for the week.
Yes, I've been missing them, and I feel like the crew has been missing them.
Yeah.
And I just and also I feel like the crew really understood it. I feel like the crew was really like, you know what though? Yeah, nah, we all need to take a minute.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah. Nah. So, girl, I don't know. I mean, time really doesn't exist at this point. So it's just, that's why it was even funny when I was like, can y'all just give me 12 hours notice? And they were like, I mean, okay, 12 hours. We don't know what that means, but fine.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So we're here, and we're in. I think we're going to be relatively in probably for the rest of the year. I mean, this is already the halfway point. Summer's about 15 days away.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, anything I had on deck for this year is moving to 2021.
Basically.
And I think we just have to surrender to that at this point. Stop fighting it,
I think it gives us time to concentrate on things that matter, because so much has happened over the past couple of months that it's really just time to just buckle down and get this shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Because this pandemonium in the streets, a pandemic is still happening. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of each other, and we've all been given various platforms. Like, everybody has a podcast now. Everybody has an IG live now. It's like, let's use our platforms to get right.
Yeah.
And get solid. If there's legislation that you're interested in and that you want, yes, like folks out there, like, start drafting stuff. Start, communicating with your community organizations, community activists. If you don't know how to do it, find someone that can. There's a lot of petitions out there. People are becoming passionate about. People are passionate about right now, like defunding the police. People are passionate about, making sure that we don't die out in these streets.
Yeah.
That we raise money for our various community organizations. I've been sharing a lot of different bail funds. I've donated to some bail funds. Post some stuff on the Women in Comics site where you can access some of these bail funds. We gotta take care of each other.
Yeah. That reminds me. I got to put some things. I've shared some things, but I need to add some stuff to my link tree. So thank you for reminding me.
Yes, like it's highly important. I mean, there's a lot of money has started to come in. That's great, and they will continuously need, though. Like, folks will continuously be in need. Your community organizations will continuously be in need. So we have to take care of them.
Yeah.
You never know who you're gonna need.
Girl.
Who you have to call on. Okay, and
Ooh-wee.
I know that from experience. It's been a long few years. Seriously, like you never know who you're gonna need or what you're gonna need, and it's so important that resources are out here,
Mm-hmm.
and we want them to stay here. So in order for that to happen, we have to give donations. So
I just want these people with these deep ass pockets.
that's
Just
another
like
conversation.
open
That's a
open your
conversation
purse.
and another conversation.
Open your purse. Open it.
It's like if you can afford to do it, if you can afford to do it, do it. Especially if you have more money than a lot of us out there. There's no excuse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see a cosign without a check.
Right, right.
I don't
And
want to
that's
see a cosign without a
yeah.
check. Like stop saying dumb stuff online, except for celebrities and stuff. Stop saying dumb stuff. Just write a check. That's it. Like that's it. Don't say anything. Don't type anything dumb. Just sign a check. That's it. With a lot of zeros. With a lot of zeros. That's what we need out here. But
Ugh,
so as we're coming to a close,
yes.
do you have any last words to send us out for the week, or send
Um,
yourself out for the week?
you know, honestly, truly, if you're someone who resides on the margins of any kind, even if you're intellectually marginalized, I'm thinking about somebody right now who was like in the body of a small white person, but is very much like connected to like those of us on the margins in that intellectual realm. So if you're someone who's really, really like that, if you can really, really look at yourself and say that truly, just rest. If you're someone who has doubts about that, if you're hearing this and you're just like, ooh, maybe, you know what? I think I really have, privilege. Then it's time for you to ante up. It's time for you to work. It's time for you to open your purse. It's time for you to open your mind. It's time for you to read books. You know what I mean? Like, there needs to be a labor switch. I think there really needs to be a shift in who is doing heavy lifting right now, you know? And I think some of us have been doing a lot of heavy lifting, and I want us to just, as much as we can, as completely as we can, put those fucking weights down and just see what happens. Just put them down, just put them down, because we've just been carrying so much for people who, have been conditioned or whatever, blah, 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 who've decided to, blah, like not carry it for themselves, and just put that shit down, because it's not really benefiting us to carry it. And I personally believe it's not really benefiting them to carry it. And so, like, if we just put that shit down and just let it sit there and rot, like, what happens? Like, if they really want to carry it, they will pick it up. And if they don't, it's just gonna sit there. So,
Okay.
confront where you are, look at where you are, act accordingly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good note to end on.
Maybe.
I do. And so I want to give a shout out to everyone that listened to us today. We have a new platform that we're putting our podcasts on. It's called Podbean. And I had posted about it earlier today, but I'll post it again. And it's also on my website, www.lockitdown.com. And you can just click the Blossom and Brew podcast, and it'll take you right to our past shows.
Yes.
But everyone, take care, be well. Follow at the Ilka Pinero on Twitter, also on Instagram.
Y'all.
I'm Lock It Down at Lock It Down on Twitter, and at Lockit_down on Instagram. And Lord willing, we'll be talking to you next week.
Girl, and the creek don't rise. All right.
Hey. Bye, y'all. Bye.
Bye.